Okay, so we are live. So hello and welcome. Dana Singleterry of the Red Hat Product Management Group will give an overview of the Red Hat roadmap and what is important to Red Hat right now. This session is being recorded. Double check. If you have any problems with the live stream, I'll post the recording in full later today. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out on the chat feature, and anyone who's on the call, feel free to ask questions. If you watch back at a later stage, please feel free to ask questions in the comments or on our forum and community discourse, and I'll follow up with answers. So Dana, it's all yours.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Melanie, and the rest of the forum community here for inviting Satellite PM to present and show you what we've been doing and kind of the direction that we're taking. So I've also got Tiho on the line, who's my counterpart based in Bordeaux. Other product manager for Satellite is Sean O'Keefe. I don't know that he's here, but we will just go ahead and kind of plow through this. One thing that I want to say at the very beginning, this presentation is not meant in any way to indicate direction that we wish the foreman community or we want the foreman community to go in. It's just really meant to show you what is important to us and our customers and the direction that we're taking. So unfortunately, we are not able to meet face-to-face like we did last year. So very disappointed about that. But I think last year we showed you a lot of what was going on in our release that was coming out in the fall, and then a few releases beyond that. If I'm not mistaken, we went through Satellite 6.8. So I know we didn't get to touch on 6.7 as far as what released this past April in great detail. So I'm going to kind of go through that as a starting point to show you our latest release. Then I'm going to jump into what we plan on delivering in the fall, which is our 6.8 release, which is going to be the last in our 6.x series. And then I'll go through 7.0 and maybe even give you a flavor of what 7.1 is going to look like. So with that, I've also got a few numbers here to show you, just customer uptake of our product. And feel free to ask questions. I'll try and get through this fairly quickly, when I say quickly, 30, 45 minutes, and save some questions for the end. All right, so this gives us some historical information on our releases from Sat 5 to where we are today. This is data that I captured June 4th of this year. And as you can see, as of June 4th, from a Satellite 6.8 or 6.7 uptake, which is this little number right here, we have over 1,000 customers, and we're seeing this grow, incrementally each month. Within the first week of our GAing 6.7, which was GA'd on April 14th, we saw roughly 400 customers pick up the product, install it in their production environment. So you'll also notice, if you're looking at this across the board, it's pretty consistent. Like this was a release right here of 6.5. This was a release of 6.6, and just based on when this was captured, it shows a lot more customer uptake. But this is basically within a 2-week period, as opposed to this one right here, which is in a 1-week window. And obviously this is well into a month of the release. So just a little stats to kind of get us going here. Okay, speaking to 6.7 and what we delivered on. So our theme here was really around integration, security, and content management. So I'm going to just kind of start off with our integrations that we did. So we developed a piece of technology called Cloud Connector. So our goal here is to integrate our on-prem solution with our SaaS solution, on-prem being Satellite, supporting hybrid cloud with that of our pure cloud solution. And what we came up with was a technology called Receptor. It was rebranded as Cloud Connector. What this allows us to do is connect our SaaS environment to our Satellite and remediate through our Satellite to the hosts that those Satellite instances manage. So real cool technology. We've had a few customers pick this up and start working with it. This is kind of stepping outside of a satellite a little bit, but there's a lot of overlap here. So this is Red Hat Insights. So, quick takeaway here is that this is still included with our Red Hat Enterprise Linux subscription. This has really evolved into a lot more than what it was originally. The Insights product has become a subset of a 7 product. So what was formerly Insights is Advisor over here. We now have 5 additional pieces: vulnerability, compliance, patch, policies, and drift. And then something that's totally outside of Insights and these tiles right here, but really has evolved from satellite land, is subscriptions management. And I'll talk about this a little bit more as I'm going through what we delivered in 6.7 and what we're delivering in the future. Actually, I'll talk about it right now. I forgot I threw the slide in there. So subscriptions management. This came out of the pain points that our customers were experiencing around managing entitlements. We've had a strict enforcement over the years, and this has caused a lot of pain for customers from various perspectives, auto attach and so forth. And we've heard loud and clear that, hey, what's the alternative here? And so we started off with what we call Golden Ticket, which evolved into a new name called Relaxed Enforcement, which has now evolved into what we productized called Simple Content Access. We broke off a separate group led by Rich Dorito, who you guys probably remember from the Foreman event last year. He was my counterpart when we were doing our little roadmap show. Rich has been driving this largely with Dan Oz and a few others. And what this allows us to do is completely remove the enforcement of entitlements from satellite, but also add a bilateral reporting mechanism that shows the customers as well as the account team, Red Hat account team, what that customer's consumption is. So whether they are redlining on, hey, we're about to pass our threshold, or they are already over consuming or even under consuming, it allows them to better tune what they're paying for, if you will. So really cool that we got this in. This is Cloud Connector, just kind of a visual, which is the one I talked about at the very beginning, allowing integration with satellite and remediation across one or more satellite to those hosts via the receptor and or the productized name Cloud Connector piece of this that allows the connection to our SaaS environment. So creating a playbook, executing that playbook through those satellites down to those hosts to perform that remediation. Just a different view of this, showing that it's running through port 443, nothing really new here, but now just jumping into the meat of what we delivered in satellite 6.7. So we worked on performance for our inventory update integration with Ansible Tower. And what we've been able to provide here is 24x better performance with this integration. So, making a lot of customers happy really with this because performance lacked, obviously. Otherwise, we wouldn't have worked on it. Ansible enhancement. So under the cover, better Ansible integration with Ansible Runner. This is something that we update just about every release. We're looking at making it a little bit more agnostic to the version of Ansible Runner that is being leveraged. If customers want to use an older version, for example, that didn't come out here, but it will be something that we're addressing in a future release, most likely. One of the big ones that we worked on with our rail team, they delivered a technology called Cockpit in the upstream and productized it as Web Console in the downstream. So we've integrated with this and allowed for invocation or launching the Web Console, which actually resides on the host being managed by satellite. And we allow for SSO into that Web Console on that particular rail host. What this allows you to do is basically anything you can imagine that you can do if you are sitting on that box directly. So, creating new users, bouncing that server, command line interaction with that rail host and so forth, all from within the satellite UI, launching that Cockpit or Web Console interface and SSO into that host. In satellite 6.5, which you guys heard a lot about this last year. We were delivering a lot of functionality around support of Rail 8. So system purpose was delivered, modularity or application streams was delivered. So we built upon that and added some more functionality with activation keys, with system purpose, and then filtering of content views and updating of content views with the modularity. System purpose is something that's also leveraged by the simple content access and subscriptions watch that I mentioned earlier. From a security perspective, we've added 3 items here, one of them being tech preview, but the first one is user impersonation. So from within Satellite, you could be an admin, you have a number of users that have access to various parts or various functionality within Satellite. They may run into an issue as opposed to you having to call up support, Red Hat support, to help you resolve those issues. You can first and foremost impersonate that user and go through the cycles of what they're doing when they're running into their issue, and then most likely helping them understand, hey, you're either doing something wrong or this functionality is not supported. So you can, stopgap of hitting Red Hat support, getting bogged down in trying to resolve an issue that way and resolve the issue on your own. We have HTTP proxy updates, simplifying that with the ability to do this or enable a proxy on a per repo basis, if you will. And then the last one here is Common Access Card with support through Red Hat SSO. We had hoped to get this in fully supported for our public sector customers. We ran into a small issue on removal of the Common Access Card that turned out to be not necessarily an issue with the way we were handling it, but an issue with Keycloak. And that is being resolved and fully productized in the upcoming release this fall. From a content management perspective, we introduced the reporting engine in Satellite 6.5. We've been adding a report every release, and for 6.7, this is the entitlements report. We call them templates, but our goal is to empower users to start creating these templates themselves. So in 6.8, which is due out in the fall, we are providing better documentation for our customers to actually create these reports themselves. We've also got the ability to import and export templates. So with this, there's a new UI to initiate this import and export from Git or local disk, and then full support for uploading source RPMs via API and CLI. From a provisioning perspective, we've been working on introducing new cloud providers each release. And as of today, we support provisioning, patching, all that that Satellite can do on premise. You can do in the cloud with AWS, Azure, and Google Compute. We introduced Google Compute from a UI perspective in the web UI last release, 6.6, and we rounded that out with a CLI and API endpoints in 6.7. And then, of course, Azure support covers the full gamut: UI, API, and CLI. And probably worth mentioning there as well that we have supported, and I think since 6.5 via support exception, but fully supported in 6.6, and I may have those versions off a little bit. It could have been support exception in 6.4 and fully supported in 6.5, I forget. With Satellite and capsules running on the top 5 cloud providers, being AWS, Azure, GCE, IBM, and Alibaba. Okay, performance and scale enhancements. We introduced the tuning assistant in 6.6 and 6.7. We've made it easier to tune up or tune down based on the number of hosts you have under management by simply running the Satellite installer with the tuning parameters. So much easier as opposed to going into your config file and changing those settings. You can actually just update that on the fly here. Task performance improvements is something that we work on in every release, and I think I have a slide further down that talks about how the task performance improvements have increased in 6.7. things that we call little bytes, remote execution, being able to run this in randomized order. Prior to 6.7, it was alphabetized. So you can imagine, you have a bank of hosts in one rack, all named similarly. Let's call it ABC1, ABC2, ABC3. Prior to randomizing this, if you're running recs against that, it would take one and then the next one and the next one in an alphabetized order. What this allows for is bridging network boundaries and basically just picking at random to reduce the load on a particular bank of servers. Usability improvements around the login page. Patternfly is part of our styling initiative. We're on a PF3 right now to a large degree and slowly getting to PF4. You'll see more and more of this in 6.8, and then notice a pretty significant UI change when we come out with 7.0 summit timeframe of 2021. Okay, so a little bit more on the stats here. Total cases resolved, 1,280, accounts impacted, 800 roughly, and total BZs fixed in this release, over 400. We've increased our repo sync by 39%, our remote execution via SSH by 86%, our remote execution via Ansible by 80%, and as I mentioned, 24x improvement with Ansible Tower dynamic inventory. And the testing here was against 20,000 hosts with this performance improvement. All right, so that is 6.7. I went through that really quickly, probably a little quicker than I expected to, but this will just give some more time for questions at the end, should we have any. This is our general NDA for anything that's forward thinking. I'm sure you guys have seen these before, and Mark with ATEX, I saw you there, good to see you. I'm sure you guys do a similar thing. So, no big secret here. Anything that you're going to see beyond this is subject to change. All right, so Satellite 6.8. This is expected fall of 2020. Our big items on here, this is certainly not all inclusive like I showed you in 6.7, which still wasn't all inclusive. Those were still the big ticket items. But what we're focused on here are really primarily what we call our top priority items. So driven largely by our telco customers is full support of IPv6. So this is from installing satellite encapsules on an IPv6 network, provisioning across a IPv6 network, patching, configuration management, all of that. Something that we provided in Satellite 5. We didn't have a lot of demand initially in Sat 6, but we have a lot of demand coming in now. And so we're delivering this here, and this will be fully supported once we get to 7.0 as well. Support upgrading satellite encapsules independently. So one of the things that we've seen with some of our customers that have in excess of, say 10, 20,000 hosts under management, kind of the golden rule is that you have, without using Puppet, you have about 2,500 hosts per capsule. That's without Puppet. And depending on what they've been doing with Puppet. So you can see how this scales, so let's just say it's 20,000 hosts. That would be roughly in the neighborhood of 8 to 10 capsules. And so taking an outage window to upgrade all those capsules while you're upgrading satellite as well can be painful to a lot of customers. I mean, not saying that it takes a day or 2 days, but it could take hours, and depending on the needs of the customers that are using those environments, those clients that are managed by satellite, they just can't take those type of outage windows. So what we're doing is allowing SAT, in this case 6.8, to communicate with SAT 6.7 capsules. So a server on 6.8, capsules on 6.7, until such time that that customer can upgrade those capsules. Upgrade automation for large fleets of capsules. This really goes hand in hand with the one that I just talked about. So when they can take that outage window, we want to have a rolling upgrade that just rolls through all those capsules and upgrades those as quickly and seamlessly as possible. Support for Ansible modules to manage satellite. I'm sure most of you, since you're part of the forming community, you know exactly what I'm talking about here. Sean O'Keefe, our counterpart in the UK, largely responsible for developing and helping out with a lot of these Ansible modules, is big proponent here, as are the rest of us. We have about 14 customers using these in production today in an unsupported model. And so what we're doing with 6.8 is we are pulling these down, rebranding these from a satellite perspective, and providing full support in satellite 6.8. Once again, fall of 2020. We are also making these available via a collection on Automation Hub, which launches in a couple of weeks. I believe it is. So end of June to early July. So customers will be able to get their hands on these even earlier without having to go to the foreman to pick these up. Let's see, UEFI provisioning improvements. So we introduced HTTP UEFI in 6.7. These are some improvements here to this. This was driven largely by a Swedish rail customer doing provisioning on the fly at high speed. So really, really cool feature that we were able to provide in 6.7 and then build upon here in 6.8. One of our integrations with another one of our integrations with the rail team is the LEAP integration. What this provides for is in-place upgrades from Rail 7 to Rail 8. So really cool functionality provided via a plug-in in satellite 6.8. All right, we are skipping over. Right now we're on Puppet 5 with 6.7 all the way to 6.5, I believe it is. Maybe 6.4, but Puppet 5. We're skipping Puppet 6 because it's a short-term support, and we're going straight to Puppet 7 because it's longer-term support. And what this will allow for is satellite 6.8, we're extending the support life cycle from 18 months to 24 months. Primary reason is that 6.8 is the last in the 6 series. At that point, we're going to 7.0 fall or summer, rather spring of 2021, around that summit timeframe. And we want to be able to provide not only our public sector customers who generally won't take up a donut release or a .0 release, more time to be on SAT 6.8 with Puppet 7 if they're leveraging Puppet, and time to get to 7.1 where we won't have Puppet, and they will need to redo a lot of their automations and modules, whatever, with Ansible as opposed to Puppet. And I'll talk about that in a little bit here in a second, and what our drive is to get away from Puppet. Productized traces. So traces is something that, once again, Sean O'Keefe had a big hand in. For those that aren't familiar with traces, it has been in tech preview since 6.3, but this is a really cool feature that some system administrators that patch their systems simply check to see if a kernel is updated. If so, they can reboot the server and so forth. And traces helps with understanding what's going on here and providing that feedback and allowing the customers to get this visual on what's going on and act upon it. We have better reporting follow-on documentation that I mentioned when I was talking about the entitlement report in 6.7. So this is coming in 6.8. So really cool that we're getting that. And then let's see, is that it for 6.8? Yeah, that's it. So jumping forward, 7.0, our theme here is really fourfold. Seamless upgrade, Ansible versus Puppet, as I already mentioned, simple content access, and Insights POP. So let's just take it top down. Seamless upgrade. What we're talking about here is really avoiding the experience that our customers had in the SAT 5 to SAT 6 upgrade. It wasn't an upgrade, it was a migration. We went from Spacewalk in the upstream to Foreman, Catello, Candleman, and Pulp in the upstream once we got to SAT 6. So in our 6 to 7 journey, we're staying with the same upstream projects. Because of that, we're going to be able to provide an upgrade path as opposed to a migration path. And we focus very, very hard on providing as near a zero outage window with multiple paths to do that upgrade. for our customers. Next one, Ansible versus Puppet. Well, it's no big surprise to our customers when we acquired Ansible that, hey, most likely Puppet is going to go away at some point. And with any .0 release, this is the opportunity for us at Red Hat to make huge leaps such as this. And so our goal is to provide more emphasis on Ansible, to extract Puppet from the product, but to allow for customers that rely on Puppet to be able to integrate their external, whether it's a Puppet Enterprise, supported by Puppet Labs or some other supported Puppet version, to still use Puppet to integrate and leverage, those facts and reports provided by Puppet within Satellite, if that makes sense. And I'll talk about this and what this looks like a little bit more in the next couple of slides. Simple content access. So talked about that. That was introduced actually in Satellite 6.5. We've made incremental updates. Actually, that's not true. It was introduced in Satellite 6.7, but we provided support for it back in Satellite 6.5. In 7.0, it is going to be the default. So all our customers will get this by default, not only those that have been asking for it, but everyone. Now, with that, we recognize that some customers still, they don't want that relaxed enforcement. They want strict enforcement. So they'll be able to opt out of this. So we want to make sure we accommodate, both groups of customers. But the majority of people that we've talked to, this solves the problem of the pain points that they've been experienced with entitlements. Insights POP, point of presence. So this is really building on some of the work that we've done in 6.7 with our open multi-cloud, hybrid cloud effort. And what we're talking about here in the 7.0 timeframe is really a simplified installer for Satellite, but also a simplified configuration for our remote execution. And we'll be building upon this Insights point of presence throughout our 7 series. Kind of already talked about this right here. I'm going to skip over this and just go to some of the actual top features that I haven't talked about. Already talked about the first 2. The third one here, Satellite and capsules will run only on RHEL 8 with 7.0. So that's another reason why we're extending that 24-month support lifecycle of 6.8. Some customers just won't be ready for RHEL 8 at this point. And so we recognize that. We want to give them a little bit more time, knowing that they will probably not pick up this .0 release, but yet focus on getting on the 7.1 release, which will be fall of 2021. But we'll also, as part of this upgrade process, we're going to provide upgrade tooling to help customers move from RHEL 7 to RHEL 8. Okay, one of the features I talked about earlier was us having Satellite on the server on one version of, or be on one version and support capsules on another version. So when customers get to SAT 7.0, they can either upgrade their capsules then, or they can still run their capsules on 6.8 till such time they can take that outage window and upgrade to their capsules to 7.0. Already talked about simple content access. Another big one here is migration to Pulp 3. So Pulp 2 is what the 6 series is based on. Pulp 3 is much more performant. Number of things that we're doing there. One of the big ones is getting rid of MongoDB and focusing just on Postgres SQL. There will be a UI refresh as part of this .0 release, and then we're also working on some upgrade or workflow improvements around our content publication process. And we'll see additional workflows such as host creation wizard being refreshed and simplified in the 7.1 and other workflows from there in our 7.x series. All right, so I mentioned that I was going to talk a little bit more about Puppet. So this is really what I've already mentioned as far as getting rid of Puppet as something that we ship with SAT 7. But this is what it really means. So while it will be removed, customers are going to be able to integrate their own instance of Puppet. And we're really, kind of focused on Puppet Enterprise here. Although there will be support for community as well. SAT7 will continue to support those, core use cases of content management DB. And what this really means is, the shared resources around facts and reports will be forwarded from that Puppet server and visualized within SAT7. So we still want to support those, like I said already, the common use cases around content management DB use cases. Now, the big kicker here is that satellite server will no longer be the point for external node classifier. Puppet ENC will not be provided. This is a pain point for some customers. So, we're giving them a lot of notice here on this. And what we've seen is that most of our customers are okay with this. There's some that, they don't like this, but that's the direction we're going. We're having to take a pretty hard line on this. And then I've already mentioned the life cycle of SAT6.8 will be extended from 18 to 24 months. So another one of the reasons that we're doing this is around our removal of Puppet. Worth noting here, though, is that we have a huge investment in our installer being based on Puppet. We're not changing that. There's no compelling reason for us to change that. I know there's been some work done in the upstream using Ansible as a installer, and that's something that we may pick up down the road and choose to build upon. But right now, it works. It's a huge, extra large effort for us to rewrite the installer, and it works. So why try and break something that is working so smoothly right now? So that's really our plan. I'll leave it at that right now. I got through that in about 30 minutes, so a little quicker than I expected, and I'll open it up to questions. And I assume everybody can still hear me.
So thanks for this overview. I'd like to ask a question then.
Yeah, go for it, Mark.
So do you already know which format version you want to use for SAT6.8?
Yeah, and I don't have that in front of me. I can get back with you on that. Melanie, you may know it off the top of your head already. I know it's an even release. That's what we're always pulling in for satellite, but I don't have that in front of me right now. Do you happen to know, Melanie? And if not, I can track it down.
I'm terrible with numbers, but either one of us will track that down or can get it back to you straight away.
Great.
Yeah. Yeah, no problem. I should know that off the top of my head, but I generally leave that to engineering. BK's got it mapped out so well in his head, and I should have included a slide on that, but we'll track that down and get that to you, Mark.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
I'm looking at the live chat on YouTube, and allegedly there's 22 people live streaming, but I have not seen any comments or questions so far.
Okay.
Also, hold on. There, Evgeny does say 2.1 is the foreman release, so it's not an even number, unfortunately.
Oh, it's not an even number. Okay.
Yeah, we didn't even remember it correctly as odd or even. So.
All right. Tell Evgeny, thank you for that. I appreciate it.
And I'm looking around. I don't see any further questions. If there are any questions, people that are, by the looks of things and by the looks of the stream, there hasn't been, there isn't a large lag between what us discussing and the broadcast. So if there aren't any questions, and if people have questions at a later stage, I can follow up for sure with you, Dana, and the rest of the PM team, and get back to people.
That sounds great. Yeah, don't hesitate to do that. And like I said, thank you all for inviting me to present here. Like I said, this is not meant to be, this is direction that we want you guys to take or anything. This is really just, this is the direction we're taking in the downstream based on our customer RFEs and so forth. So appreciate the opportunity. And if there's any questions, Melanie, you'll get those to me, and we'll get answers between Tiho, Sean, and myself. Back to you.
Exactly. So we can end it there. I'll just stop the stream.